Whilst I was researching my hip hop magazine, I realised that Afro-Caribbean male was a regular feature, so I included a single Afro-Caribbean male standing alone. He is also positioned in front of a police car. This is because in my research I saw a direct link between crime, money and hip hop. So I used this to enforce my hip hop vibe through the magazine. The masthead also falls at the top of my magazine. This is another conventional technique used by real magazines to draw in customers and target market. The title of my magazine was also used to give the magazine an edge to it. This falls into the same category as magazines titled such as The Source. The text I used for the masthead was a bold sans serif. This gives it a conventional urban look to it rather than a formal serif font. The entire font used on the masthead is in capital letters. This is the same as in my research magazine. At the top of the magazine on the skyline it reads, "Look back at our greatest not suitable for white specials." This gives my magazine that lads magazine edge to it. This is very conventional in hip hop magazines. I found this out during my original research. Whilst I was doing my research, I saw the running theme of urban clothing such as baggy jeans and hoodies. I decided to include this within my magazine to help my magazine connect with the target market. On my magazine front cover, the background of the shot is black and white. This is one of the ways that I challenge the conventional hip hop background. On all the analysis, the background was either blank or white. I use this because it allowed me to use some mise en scène, i.e. the police car. The magazines that I researched, the majority had groups and crews of people. I decided to challenge the conventional hip-hop magazine by placing a single Afro-Caribbean male on the front cover instead. On the front cover, I decided to take on board that a lot of hip-hop magazines have a main image covering the masthead a little bit. My magazine, however, did not have this main image covering the masthead. This is because the Afro-Caribbean male had to look in proportion to the police car. During my research and contents pages, I realised that the margins were wide, so I decided to follow the convention and keep my margins wide as well. This created a professional and spacious look towards it. My contents page has the heading Contents in full capitals. Just like the front page, this follows the convention of hip-hop magazines having bold sans serif fonts. In the top right-hand corner of my magazine is a pull quote. I realised it was conventional for hip-hop magazines to have some form of inspirational pull quote, so I decided to add this in. I kept the masthead from the front page and followed it through the contents page. This was one in keeping with the house style and also kept it conventional since all magazines I used in my research also did this. In my research, I also realised that hip-hop magazines conventionally put the date on the contents page, so to be in keeping with this, I also decided to put it on. This allows the reader to know which month the magazine runs through and when it starts and when it finishes. Also, to stick to my house style and convention of hip-hop magazines, I placed a cover story tag next to the main headline. This was used in the magazine that I researched in my analysis. My magazine contents page doesn't follow the same layout as most hip-hop magazines since it doesn't have a feature and regular section. It is just rolled all out onto one side. This is because the style of my magazine suits this. You wouldn't necessarily find this in magazines, however I decided to challenge the convention. My magazine contents page also has an album cover in it. This helps to promote the album cover. This also isn't found on many hip-hop magazines, but also put there because it fits in with the headline. Just like the front cover of my contents page, I have created a link with hip-hop, crime and money. This is done by having a police car parked in the background and having the headline, Luke Phillips, Rap's Most Wanted. This is conventional of hip-hop magazines since hip-hop stars always bragging about being the best in the world about something. Another piece of convention I brought into the double page spread is the website and subscription section running at the bottom of the page. This brings more hype and attention around the magazine since today's technology, it is easy for people to access the internet and for things to go viral. My double page spread uses conventional language because at points it refers to racial slurs. These racial slurs have been starred out but still remained in the magazine. This is almost used exclusively in hip hop because in the genre of music the word is used so frequently. My magazine is targeted at hip-hop fans. This group of people have a wider age range than most music genres. This means my magazine had to be hip and cool, but at the same time managed to relate to the older hip-hop fans, who is about 40 plus. You can see this through the things in my skyline, which reads, "Look back at our greatest not suitable for work specials." From this phrase you can tell that it's targeted at readers who are of an older generation. The way I address the audience is in a very urban way, such as the headline, "Who's representing your hood?" By the way I say this, you can tell the type of people that the magazine is aimed at. From my main image you can tell that it's aimed at more urban audiences, such as the way he is dressed. This is a very street way and will help people to relate with the magazine. The serious face he is putting on, which is directly addressing the reader, once again links into the hip-hop stereotype of being linked with crime and being thuggish. This is once again used by my main headline, which says, "Wrong side of the law." Hip-hop artists are generally seen as icons but are normally praised for doing wrong. I've incorporated this into my magazine also by having my Afro-Caribbean male posed by the police car as if being arrested and troubled is a good thing he should be rewarded for. This plays on the attitude hip-hop is famous for, such as the "I don't care" attitude. The genre I have aimed to use is hip-hop, but with the underground effect to it, with a headline such as "Unsigned for Too Long, 2012" and 40 Years of Pure Hip-Hop. This creates a hipster effect to which hip-hop fans seem to fit into. Media institutions such as Harris Publications. Harris Publications also owns XXL and many other music magazines such as Scratch and Revolver. This means that they have experience in the field since they've been in the business for 30 plus years. They also have numerous sports magazines. Sports and hip-hop go hand in hand, and this will create an advantage for my magazine since I will be able to delve into other fields, not just stick to music. Harris Publications is also known worldwide. They have 10 different types of genres that are all sold in different countries. This will spread the word of my magazine and allow it to create a larger hype around it. When it comes to magazines, Harris Publications is one of the big names. This can only be a positive for my magazine since they will allow me to know what are the do's and don'ts of the magazine industry. This would save time and money since it gives my magazine some experience. The audience for my magazine will be late teens to mid-adults. My magazine was made to suit the needs of all hip-hop fans and can't really be given an entire age range, since most hip-hop fans all listen to the same band of music, unlike genres such as hip-hop which can go from Madonna to Lady Gaga. The genre of my magazine will be more male rather than female, since the magazine has a masculine aggressive aspect towards it, such as "Look Back to Our Greatest, not suitable for work specials." I won't find this as interesting as a male would, simply because it is targeted at a male audience. The price of my magazine is £2.99. This is fairly cheap for a magazine. This is because my audience will be majority lower class, since hip-hop is seen as an urban music genre. So it would be stupid for me to price it upwards, since my audience wouldn't have such a large disposable income as some. Because of the reputation hip-hop has of being an Afro-Caribbean dominated music genre, my target market and audience will be Afro-Caribbeans. This means I can add racial slang which other ethnicity wouldn't understand without being involved in the music. I attracted my audience by using a model that they could connect with. Knowing that my audience is probably Afro-Caribbean ethnicity, I decided it would be attractive if I put an Afro-Caribbean model on the front cover. The front cover is the first thing people see of your magazine, so I decided to make it stand out as much as possible. I did this by using big bold text with bright red colour. Red makes the font stand out from my black and white background. This will also attract my audience to my magazine. The use of names that are well known will create attention for my magazine. If someone sees a name they like or dislike, they will automatically take interest with the magazine. This is why I've listed names on the front cover in the left third, but not give away the whole storyline. This means that my reader will go into the magazine and possibly be caught up in it. Having a pull quote on the contents page will also attract people in the magazine. They are placed there as an initiative to hopefully draw people into the magazine and hopefully into the purchase. From making my magazine, I have learnt numerous amounts of technological skill. The first thing I learned was to use a single lens reflex camera. I used it to take clear, more detailed pictures of my main image. I learned how to change the depth of field on the camera to give the photo some depth in the background. After that, I learned how to upload it to Photoshop. In Photoshop, I learned how to use such tools as the magic wand, the quick selection tool. These were good for selecting my background and using effects. I also learned how to use such effects as filter and blur. Once I learned how to use these, then I found out how to use the clone stamp. This was useful when my model left his headphone out, so I had to stamp it out. Another tool I found useful was the contrast and brightness. Because of the darkness of my picture, I had to also alter how dark he looked. Whilst making my masthead, I used blending options such as drop shadow, inner shadow, outer glow and inner glow. This gives it the three-dimensional look it has. From the preliminary task, I believe that I've learnt a lot, and because of this I was able to produce a greater magazine. Looking back at the making of my preliminary task, I believe now that I have a greater insight of not only how to make a magazine using Photoshop and Adobe, but also how to match conventions of the genre and how to challenge the conventions, whilst keeping it stylish. Because of the preliminary task, I was able to see what my limits were on Photoshop and what looks good and what doesn't. Because of this, I think the preliminary task has helped me out with my magazine and the way it's laid out and presented. I feel like from the preliminary task, I've managed to work out how important the main image is, how facial expressions and direct address can change the whole feel of a magazine, and how text can be used to manipulate the viewer's looks of a magazine. I learnt such stuff as sensible margins and gutterings for my front cover and my contents page. I also found out the importance of mise-en-scène. Since the preliminary task was to make a college magazine, I had to include the pictures from around the college to allow people to make the link with the college. I then interpreted this into my actual magazine.